Senator Schumer threatens two Supreme Court justices. The left's abortion extremism on display. Elizabeth Warren has some campaign news. Could it be over for Bernie in Michigan? And what everybody needs to know about Biden, as well as is D.C. underreporting serious crimes? That and more coming up. Welcome to the Buck Sexton Show, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. Chuck Schumer kicks us off today. I feel like my Schumer voice and my Bloomberg voice are too close, and I've been doing a lot of Bloomberg lately, so I'll skip that for right now. But Schumer decided that while he was standing on the steps of the Supreme Court, he would issue a straight-up threat, not a veiled threat, not a I'm going to make an insinuation here or an oblique reference to make you uncomfortable. No. A threat against two named Supreme Court justices, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. Here is exactly what the senator from New York had to say. Play 3.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
Wait a second. I thought that we had to respect our government norms and institutions. I thought that we had to sit around and be lectured by whiny libs forever, endlessly, every day, about how Trump is destroying our government institutions and the foundation of our democracy and the independence of the judiciary, and he's a threat to the press, and And then when you ask them, what exactly has Trump done that results in any of those conclusions? They yell some nonsense, about what Trump said about Mexicans or what Trump said at Charlottesville, both cases where they lie about what he said, what the intent of his words were. They pretend not to understand plain English. I had to deal with this, again, last week in the Lion's Den on the Bill Maher show with all the crazy libs around me. Trump says that they said Trump's lying because he says that there's a vaccine coming quickly. Well, it is coming quickly. It's faster. They think it'll be faster than any vaccine in the history of the world. But that still is about 12 to 18 months. He's lying. That's not lying. It's not lying. Just because you don't like someone doesn't mean you get to call them a liar and everything they say is a lie and it's all lies all the time. But Trump has emotionally and psychologically broken the libs, and they have not yet fixed themselves. If anything, they've only gotten worse. And that brings me back to Schumer. Schumer says this at a time when we are, like I said, endlessly lectured by libs about how dangerous it is for Donald Trump to speak the way he does about various government officials. They say he undermines the FBI. They say he does this, that, and the other thing that is so very, very dangerous to our government Undermining our institutions is a talking point that nobody should take seriously at this point from the left, because they are willing to trash the very institutions that they complain Trump is undermining the moment that they don't serve libs' purposes. They will trash those institutions right away. And then that brings me to what has happened here with these judges and why this is even being discussed. There's a case right now that is going to be heard by the Supreme Court that is being heard about abortion. Abortion. I read the headline. They say abortion. Right, abortion. There's no right to it. There's no right to an abortion. This is a fiction liberals created. And it was really the breaking. You want to talk about breaking institutions and destroying faith in government and the impartiality of our judicial system. Roe v. Wade is a judicial, never mind moral, it is a judicial abomination. It is not possible to be a person who believes that words have meaning and the law is something that is written down to be understood by all people bound by it, and to think that Roe was a sound decision, regardless of your position on abortion. In fact, honest liberals will tell you that Roe was poorly decided, even if they like the outcome. that the legal reasoning behind Roe was ridiculous. It was an absurdity, and it has done violence to violence to tens of millions of unborn babies, but it has, in the sense of the legality or judicial system, it has undermined that and done violence to our notions of justice. And that's that's part of the legacy of Roe. From a legal standpoint, that's the legacy, putting aside for a moment the Holocaust of the unborn that has occurred as a result of it, year in and year out. I will get more into that in a moment, but first let's just finish up this thread about what's happening here and why Schumer's standing outside the steps of the Supreme Court. I mean, Chuck Schumer is a shameless and utterly morally decrepit politician. I don't think anybody could make a real case otherwise. I mean, Schumer will say anything at any time, has never stood on principle that would go against his immediate interests a day in his life. He is a slimy and dishonest person. Why is he on the steps of the Supreme Court? I thought that the impartiality of the Supreme Court was something that we were all supposed to respect. Why are there protests outside the Supreme Court on this issue? It should not matter. These are not elected representatives. People often forget this. Now, like you say, Buck, but there are also pro-life protesters. Yeah, they're there to counter the pro-choice protesters who, as we know, are crazy. Like the stuff that they'll say, the things that are being... I'm going to play audio for you, so I'm not just going to throw that allegation out there without giving you more. But this idea that there should be pressure brought by not just protesters, but politicians getting the rabble fired up on the steps of the Supreme Court in this way. Neither side should do this, but when one side, the libs, does it, I can understand why the other side says, well, we got to show up too, so that there isn't this perception. Because you know what the media does? They show up to say, look at all these people, look at all these women who just want their liberation and their freedom on the steps of the Supreme Court. Nobody disagrees with them, apparently, because there's nobody here. I understand that this is how that propaganda game is played. But let's just go back to some foundational principles here. There shouldn't be pressure brought to bear at the physical body of the Supreme Court by people on any issue like this. It doesn't matter how many people get. It doesn't matter if they had 1 million protesters outside. It doesn't matter. The court is supposed to decide based upon the constitutional merits of the issue at hand. This issue has to do with a law in Louisiana that sought to hold abortion clinics to the same standards as other medical clinics. Right? That's what this is all about. Now, what that would mean, in effect, is that there would be some abortion clinics in the state of Louisiana that would either have to upgrade their facilities, have people that are doctors with admitting privileges on site, or else they would have to shut down. Now we get into, we'll pause for a moment on where the abortion movement is with the left in this country. But first, you would think that after Chuck Schumer threatens 2 Supreme Court justices, he would know that he's gone too far. This is a statement from the office of Chief Justice John Roberts in response to what Chuck Schumer said. This morning, Senator Schumer spoke at a rally in front of the Supreme Court while a case was being argued inside. Senator Schumer referred to 2 members of the court by name and said he wanted to tell them that you have released the whirlwind, you will pay the price. You will not know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions. Justices know that criticism comes with the territory, but threatening statements of this sort from the highest levels of government are not only inappropriate, they are dangerous. All members of the court will continue to do their job without fear or favor from whatever quarter. Chief Justice slapping down Schumer. Slapping him down, and he deserved it, and then some. Before we go any further here, can you imagine for a moment what the response would be if Donald Trump called out 2 lib members of the Supreme Court, if he said, Sotomayor and RBG, you better do what I want on this case pending before you, or else. I mean, I actually think that they would try impeachment proceedings against him again based on that. Oh, the president's destroying the foundations of our democracy. And look, it's not right for him to say, if he, which he didn't say that, but it wouldn't be right. But I'm just saying that's the level they would be willing to go to if Trump did this. Chuck Schumer, at first, he's going to have a bad news cycle now. He is having a bad news cycle. But at first, he had a spokesman go out to double down on this one, to say, yeah, well, what about what the Republicans do? Yeah, what about the Republicans? They're so bad here. And this is all about libs who expect the Supreme Court and use the Supreme Court as a super legislature, and they've had it now for decades, or things that they cannot get from their elected members through the legislative branch, they demand the Supreme Court just hand them from on high. Schumer pretty much said as much. Play 15, producer Mark.
We are here to send these folks a message, not on our watch. So let me ask you, my friends, are we going to let Republicans undo a woman's right to choose? Are we going to stay quiet as they try to turn back the clock? Are we going to give up or waver when things get tough? No, we're going to stand together in one voice and take a stand on behalf of women and families throughout the country. We're going to stand against all these attempts to restrict a woman's right to choose, and we will win.
He's an evil guy. I mean, I don't know how you could stand on the steps of the Supreme Court and just even think of the language he's using. Why not just say abortion? Why say protect the right to choose? Why? Just say abortion. I don't understand why Chuck Schumer... Oh, no, I do understand. I should rephrase that. But I don't see any fair reason why he shouldn't just speak about this the way that it is. And he initially went out there and he doubled down on this. Chuck Schumer thought, hey, I don't have to apologize. I'm just going to go after Republicans, because that usually works. The media's in his back pocket. Usually it's going to work for him. But then everybody, including crazy Lawrence Tribe, professor at Harvard Law, and a whole bunch of other lefties running around in the public sphere, they were like, no, you really can't do that. I mean, because, and I think that they're telling him that because if he doesn't walk back from this, guess what? The next time they go, Trump is destroying democracy. Look what he said about the journalists. He's destroying the First Amendment. We'd all sit around and say, right, Chuck Schumer threatens Supreme Court justices in front of a mob by name at the Supreme Court. That's pretty egregious, isn't it? If anything bad had happened after that, wouldn't Chuck Schumer perhaps be subject to charges of incitement? I'm just saying, you got a mob, you're rabble-rousing, you're calling people out, saying, we're gonna come get you if you don't give us what we want here. This is part of why we see the ugliness over Kavanaugh and judicial confirmations. And I'm going to tie this all back to, who really was an originator of the nasty partisan fighting over Supreme Court nominees? It was Joe Biden. Mr. Moderate now, Mr. Oh, it's cool, he's part of the establishment, don't worry about it. It was Joe Biden who engaged in the destruction of Judge Bork, that horrific character assassination campaign. And then it was Joe Biden who presided over the Clarence Thomas fiasco, which he referred to Clarence Thomas as a high-tech lynching in a memorable phrase. And thank heaven, look, Clarence Thomas, Kavanaugh, these guys have had to fight back against the most vicious smears. Who's the lib Supreme Court justice that has had to absolutely go to the wall to protect himself or herself against conservative smears? Do you have one in mind? This game is not played the same way by both sides. Don't think it is for a second. The left is delusional. And don't fall into the trap of assuming, well, we got two political parties. They must be about equivalent, about as moral. Really? Well, as somebody who's been diving into the history of the Russian Revolution, you think the provisional government after the fall of the Tsar was more or less ethical than the Bolsheviks who seized power in October of 1917 and within short order were lining people up for execution and starving people on purpose? I mean, not all government bodies are the same. Not all government parties are equally moral. I'm not saying that the Democrats are the Bolsheviks, although Bernie feels like he's not that far off these days. But the left is wrong on this one, and they have to continue to dig in, because to accept that they've been wrong would be to cede their favorite toy to the other side, which is the moral high ground, which they think that they hold always. Schumer has since come out and said that he has now apologized, I believe, for this. Not really apologized. He's done the non-walk back. Play 23, Mark.
I should not have used the words I used yesterday. They didn't come out the way I intended to. My point was that there would be political consequences for President Trump and Senate Republicans if the Supreme Court, with the newly confirmed justices, stripped away a woman's right to choose. Of course, I didn't intend to suggest anything other than political and public opinion consequences for the Supreme Court, and it is a gross distortion to imply otherwise. I'm from Brooklyn. We speak in strong language. I shouldn't have used the words I did, but in no way was I making a threat. I never would do such a thing. And Leader McConnell knows that. And Republicans who are busy manufacturing outrage over these comments know that too.
Nope, he's a liar. We heard what he said. It was as clear a threat as can be made. He's gaslighting us now, and the media is going to cover for him.
As long as this majority holds the gavel, we will never let the minority leader's dangerous views become policy. This majority will ensure the only casualties of this recklessness are the reputation of those who engage in it.
At least Cocaine Mitch isn't going to back down on this one. Look, Chuck Schumer was wrong, and that wasn't. I mean, to call that an apology is doing a disservice to apologies. It wasn't an apology. It was a pseudo clarification full of lies and accusations against the other side. And Chuck Schumer's a disgrace. And I'm here in New York State. He's one of my 2 senators, and I just can't imagine how anybody casts a ballot for this guy and feels good about it. But people do. People do. And then that brings me to why right now, over this case in Louisiana, why is it that we are seeing such nastiness? Abortion extremism is more widespread, and it is more hardcore in the Democratic Party than it has ever been before. We have moved a long ways away from Clinton and others saying that they wanted abortion to be safe, legal, and rare. No. Now they've decided that this is something to celebrate on an individual level.
I just listened to the Republican leader, and there was a glaring omission in his speech. He did not mention what the rally yesterday, my speech, or the case before the court was about: a woman's constitutional right to choose. To the women of America, what we're talking about here, what I am fighting for here, is your right to choose. An issue, of course, Leader McConnell completely ignored in his speech.
Right to choose. Isn't it interesting that this is the fallback phrase always? Why not just say what it is, a right to an abortion? That's what they're saying. A right to abortion access, and even the right to celebrate abortions, which we're going to get to in a moment. That was happening at the Supreme Court. When you know that something is good, you can speak about it very clearly. You know, when I talk about individual human dignity, or talking about rule of law that applies to all individuals equally, irrespective of race, creed, or color, you can be very clear. You can use precise language. You don't have to use politically charged, vague language. You don't have to use phrases that are loaded in one direction or the other. You can just say what it is you want. You know, this is very straightforward. If someone asks me, do you think that the Constitution gives you a right to bear arms? Yes, I think that individuals should have a right to own, possess, and carry firearms in common usage for the defense of themselves, their homes, and as a bulwark against government tyranny. Very straightforward, right? I think that people should have a right to decide whether or not they may wish to carry some form of armament consistent with ever-changing local regulation, and that won't upset libs because it doesn't look too scary. No. right? When you're talking in moral terms, you should speak with clarity. It should be straightforward. Everyone should know exactly what you're suggesting and what you're saying. And it is such a tell, it's such a giveaway that whenever Democrats talk about this issue, it always turns into these phrases that are imprecise, that morph into other things, that change over time, that are highly loaded, politicized ways of talking about the issue. What are we really saying here? What Democrats want you to know is that they will oppose any restriction whatsoever on an abortion at any time during a pregnancy. They will oppose any defunding by the government of any organization that is providing abortions. They will oppose, they will create special rules and regulations to protect unencumbered access, meaning physical walking to abortion clinics, which does not, it doesn't happen with other institutions, right? There are protesters running around, people getting up in your face. They will create special rules, special carve-outs within the law to make sure that this is an absolute right. What restriction at the federal level exists on abortion right now? Or abortion facilities? That would be something proponents of the pro-life position would want. You can't think of one. What is it? We had Governor Northam, and we're at the point now where, because of the internet and because of social media, and by the way, people always say don't talk about this stuff on the radio because people turn off, they don't want to hear it, it's too intense. I think it's too important to just avoid talking about it entirely. So apologies for that. We will talk more politics. Apologies for those of you that this is not something you want to hear as you're going to work or going home or eating your lunch or whatever it may be, but this matters. It matters to all of us, and this is an issue of law. This is an issue of morality and governance. So I think it's important that we have clarity, because we are living right now with a Democratic Party that is deeply immoral, that is propagating evil in the name of women's freedom, and it's wrong. It's wrong. And people can attack me and whatever. I will go to my grave smiling for always having been a proponent of this side of the issue. And if nothing else, and I've said this before, it is my fondest wish that maybe in all the years I've been doing this radio show, perhaps one woman hearing me talk about this might be moved to say, I'm going to keep the baby. Not every day you could show up to a job and be part of helping someone make the decision to save a life. Not every day you get to do that, right? That's something special. That's something truly worthwhile. So now we get to what this rally was all about and what they're pushing for and what the politics around this are. I'm often told that you'll hear when you push somebody in a corner of this, and no woman wants to have an abortion, and it's a very difficult choice, and we always hear about how difficult it is, and it's so challenging and difficult and emotional and difficult. And okay, is that really the position of the pro-choice abortion movement? We just call it the abortion movement. I mean, it is that's what this is all about. It's about aborting unborn babies. And this is, for example, what's said at these rallies. Producer Mark, play clip 19.
Let's hear it for Senator Schumer! Let's hear it for all the people who have abortions! Let's hear it for our trans folks who have abortions!
Let's hear it for all the folks who have abortions. Let's cheer. Let's cheer for it. That's what's going on. You have a crowd of people gathered in the Supreme Court who are cheering for this. And there are a series of different interviews that are out there right now making the rounds on social media where women are asked about this issue. And some of them will number their abortions. They'll say, I've had 2, I've had 3. And they're proud of it. They think that they're like freedom fighters for women because they've done this. The corruption of the mind and the soul that the Democratic Party has engaged in here is something that the country will have to wrestle with for hundreds of years to come. It's such a sad thing. I mean, I'm getting older every day now, and I think more and more about what I wish I knew when I was younger. And there are some things that I'm very confident in. And one of them is that everybody that makes the choice makes the choice for life. When they get older and as they look back on their life, they'll always think that was the right decision. And a lot of people that go the other way do not. They won't talk about this. They won't show you the studies. They won't have people come forward who will, they won't give them platforms. I mean, this is also one area where the media, because the abortion regime is so powerful, and they are powerful, you cannot be a Democrat who is not an extremist on the issue of abortion. You cannot be one. At the national level, you could not run for president. You will not win in an all blue state. They might let you kind of pretend at the end of the day if you're in like a state like West Virginia, let's say, and you're trying to run as a Democrat. They might let you say that, but when it comes to a vote that matters, oh no, you're going to fall in line with those Democrats. So, and then you look at Planned Parenthood and the amount of money that's given. I mean, there are huge pools of cash that come from the abortion industry and make their way to politicians. There are a number of very prominent people in the media who either themselves or their spouses have been advocates for, publicly pushing for funding for Planned Parenthood. Some of them have worked for Planned Parenthood. I mean, when you start to dig into this, you realize that this is an underworld of immorality it's just below the surface. I mean, you'd have to dig a little bit. Oh, you mean so and so's wife was a regional director of Planned Parenthood, and now he is reporting on this Supreme Court issue in a way that always seems to take the liberal side of the argument. What a surprise, right? This keeps happening. You cannot trust them to be honest about what's going on. You cannot trust them to tell you the truth about this. They won't admit that they're wrong about Trump. They're certainly not going to admit that they are engaged in the greatest moral evil this country has faced since slavery, right? They will not admit that. Democrats, it would really, in a sense, perhaps be the dissolution of the Democratic Party as we know it. The Democratic Party is effectively at war with the traditional family, with life, meaning babies being born instead of babies being aborted. There are some core with gender. I mean, that person at the abortion rally saying, let's hear it for trans people who have abortions. What? They're called women. The only people that can have abortions are women. That's it. There's no one else who can have an abortion. Women. There's no trans men who have abortions. That's not a thing. There are women who have abortions. You can call them whatever you want, but they're still biologically women. Very strange that we live in the times we do, where truth is often treated as a hanging offense by the media. I mean, you just get in so much trouble. So I'm trying to think of what else needs to be said here other than they are outraged at Trump and at Republicans right now because they're very frightened at losing what they feel is the judicial super legislature that the libs have enjoyed for a very long time. This was a one-way war. Libs would put the most left-wing people possible on the bench, knowing that they were going to be. I mean, just look at the major Supreme Court decisions since the 1980s. The four libs on the court at any given time always stick together. Conservatives will break. They'll go. Conservatives have saved Obamacare with John Roberts twice. Conservatives will go with the other side. That happens. Libs never do. On the key social and major issues of governance and constitutionality, the libs are in lockstep with each other. They want what they want, and they're going to get it. Doesn't matter how they. I mean, then there's. Look, Ginsburg is bright. Sotomayor just is not a good lawyer, is not a very smart legal mind, but people are hesitant to say that. Kagan's very smart. Sotomayor is just not very good at this. But, they wanted to. The Obama administration had a decision to make about how to make the court more diverse, and they went with Sotomayor. I think they could have made much better choices. I think they should have made much better choices. I think she's really an embarrassment to the Supreme Court, but, I know, we're not allowed to ever say that there are libs who are just not very bright. It's true, though. There are libs who are not. There are conservatives who aren't very bright, too. I mean, I'm equal opportunity in that regard. But they're upset because they know that if they lose their judicial supermajority, they may not get things that are very important to the left-wing cause. Mitch McConnell understands this. Play 21, Producer Mark.
Judicial independence is what enables courts to do justice, even when it is unpopular, to protect constitutional rights, even when powerful interests want them infringed. Judicial independence Madam President, is what makes the United States of America a republic of laws rather than of men. It's been almost a century since the last time Democrats threatened to pack the Supreme Court because they wanted different rulings. History still judges that disgraceful episode to this day. So I would suggest that my Democratic colleagues spend less time trying to threaten impartial judges and more time coming up with ideas that are actually constitutional.
Nope, they'd rather just get what they want from the lib judges that they ram through and they have a Democrat in the White House. That's their plan. We know that's their plan. It has been for decades.
You know, I in the legislature, in the Michigan legislature for 6 years, used to say to people, yo, you know what? You're so freaking obsessed with what I decide to do with my body. Maybe you shouldn't even want to have sex with me or with you or with any women.
That's Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, in case you're wondering. That's the level of discourse that she brings to the Democratic Party. Really high-level stuff. I think it's clear she's a moron, but she's a dangerous moron. She's somebody who will say whatever to get the crowd fired up on issues where she can't actually speak to what's really going on. She just knows the talking points and screams them at people. And the whole thing about don't even want to have sex with, I'm not even going to touch that. I don't even know what to say. I'm just going to leave that. Another member of Congress on this issue, Ayanna Pressley, another one of the woke crowd in Congress. Here's what she's a new member of Congress. She's play 7.
And we have 2 alleged sexual predators on the bench of the highest court of the land with the power to determine our reproductive freedoms. I still believe Anita Hill, and I still believe Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. So yes, I am outraged because this is outrageous. Let us channel our righteous rage into voting power, the power to evict the occupant of this White House, to legislate our destiny, to affirm our collective liberation. I stand ready as a partner in this battle to protect the will of the people and ensure every person has the right to self-determination over their reproductive health. The people united will never be defeated.
That was a perfect soundbite in so many ways of what the lib delusion is here. People united. I mean, going with the kind of Alinsky mobilizing, community organizing, yelling out on the street. Yeah, it's all about our right for reproductive health. Reproductive health? There is no health condition that she's talking about here. That's not part of the discussion. But this is where we are, and the even more in a sense that there's so you know what, I'm gonna cut it off at this segment because I know we got other things to talk about, but I'll just say this: to call Kavanaugh and Justice Thomas sexual predators. First of all, Clarence Thomas was accused of making some sexual jokes. That doesn't make you a sexual predator, and only a moron would say otherwise. So let's start with that. Okay, you're not a sexual predator if you make jokes that are inappropriate in the workplace. And who knows if he even did? I mean, he said he didn't, and there was no proof, and she followed him around and wanted to keep working with him forever. So I guess it wasn't that bad. But there's a huge anti-male component at the heart of left-wing feminism. Huge resentment of men because left-wing feminists have told them to compete with men in every regard. You're the same as men. You're exactly the same as men. And if they don't view you as such, if they don't treat you as such, not legally equal in every respect. That's why men are now competing in women's powerlifting tournaments, folks. That's happening because of the left-wing delusion that men and women are the same. Break down gender. And if you don't agree with that, you're a misogynist, you're a sexist. And she throws in Kavanaugh, too, alleged sexual predator. Only a moron, given the facts, really believes that Kavanaugh is a sexual predator. I mean, that is such a smear. Somebody should ask her. Somebody in the press should say, excuse me, Ayanna Pressley, the third accuser of Kavanaugh said that he was running the gang rape rings in high school that nobody ever heard of from the crazy lady who was clearly lying. Do you believe her? Does she have a right to be believed? We don't have a real press, though. We've got lackeys. We've got journalists. I mean, I despise lib journos so much that I honestly sometimes think I don't even know how long I could stay in this business because that's how annoying they are. Like, maybe it'd be nice to just, build homes or write poetry or something. Who knows? But these libs are completely out of their minds. And now we can talk some politics.